Guys, it's Erin, and it has been a really long time since I've done a video blog entry, and that's totally my fault. I did have a lot going on health-wise in my life, but a lot of it was just being lazy and also not really knowing how to phrase this part of my Mycobacterium story. But that's enough of an intro. We're just gonna jump right into it. So if you remember from my last video, I left off saying that I had gotten a call from Dr. Wallace despite the fact that we thought he was retired and then he didn't see very many people a year, so that's really cool. So we get the call and we drive 3 hours to Tyler, Texas to see him, and he does a lot of different tests on me. I have to do like a CAT scan, x-ray, blood work, like all this stuff. And then he comes in and he assesses me. And he decides that he's going to put me on an experimental treatment. And I say experimental because no one in the country, and especially that he had seen, had done this treatment. So it was really new. It was really just like, we're just going to see if it works. And my mom and I were really open to that because when you're told that there's nothing that they can do for you and that it's drug resistant and like it's just going to deteriorate your lungs over a period of time, there's nothing, no treatment, you're down to try anything. So I get put on this experimental treatment of 3 oral antibiotics again. I get put on rifampin, ethambutol, and azithromycin, which I was put on the first time. And then I also get put on an inhaled medication called amikacin. And that is the most disgusting tasting medication. It was so gross. Like, I hated doing it. Like, I don't mind doing my hypertonic saline or my pulmozyme or my Caystin or my Toby. I don't mind doing any of that. This was disgusting. It was so bad. But I had to do it. So I don't remember how many times a day I did it, and that'll make more sense later on in the story why I don't really remember how many times a day. It was probably twice. But that'll make more sense later on because you would think I'd remember that. So I do that, and I want to say that I saw Dr. Wallace like end of June, early July, because I know that I was doing my amikacin when I went to New York that summer with my family. So every month I had to send in a sputum culture to Dr. Wallace so that they could see if this experimental treatment was working. So I sent in my first sputum probably at the end of July or beginning of August. And miraculously, the numbers, like the colony numbers of Mycobacterium in my lungs, had gone down. It's been so long that I can't tell you like, oh, it was at 1,000, now it was at 800, but it had gone down, which was really, really encouraging. So now I'm going to kind of branch off into this other part of the story that's really important, but I wanted to kind of get that out of the way first. So if you remember in the last video, I talked about a woman that my mom had met, and she's actually the reason that we wound up getting in touch with Dr. Wallace. Well, this woman is just so amazing, and she's such a God-fearing woman, and she's just absolutely incredible, and I truly believe that she was sent to me by God to be in my life. And this is the part of the video that if you're not a religious person, you're probably just gonna like roll your eyes and move on. But I do encourage you to listen because this experience changed my life and strengthened, is that a word? Yes. Strengthened my faith, and what made me go from being like a Christian in name and like going to church Sunday school and Easter and stuff to really believing like, wow, there is a God. So I'm going to quit my like rambling and get into it. So when my mom and I were kind of down and out, we didn't really have much hope. We hadn't seen Dr. Wallace yet. This woman introduced my mom to healing prayer. At first we were pretty skeptical because these healing prayers and these healing prayer ministers they kind of seem really out there, and if you're not someone who really knows the power and the love of Jesus, then you don't really think that that's like a thing, and you're just really skeptical, and that's kind of how my mom and I were. But we had nothing else because, like I said, at this point we hadn't seen Dr. Wallace. And so my mom and I start watching these healing ministers, Andrew Womack and Curry Blake. And we start really getting into it and being like, maybe this is real. Maybe this is a thing. And we start reading testimonies of people who had ALS and were in wheelchairs and now they're walking. And people who had cancer and told they were going to die and they're 100% cancer free. And so I really started to believe this. And one of the things that I believe it was Andrew Womack preached was you can't have a plan B. When you decide to give your sickness or ailment or just self over to God, you can't have a plan B. Like, you can't say, I'm going to pray to God that he takes away this Mycobacterium, but just in case he doesn't, I'm going to do this medicine. And that's a really scary thought because you're like, what? Like, I can't have a plan B? Like, having a plan B is really, really nice, especially when you're dealing with something like an illness. Like, it just sounds crazy. Like, someone would, stop doing their chemo if they had cancer. Like, it's just crazy. And you think about it, and it's this foreign concept of not having a backup plan. And that took a long time to get through my head. Well, now going back to where I left off on the Dr. Wallace thing, my numbers had gone down, and I did something that I don't advise, because it could have very well gone poorly for me, but it didn't, and I owe all of that to God. I stopped doing my amikacin. My mom had no idea, but I would bring it up and I would pour it out. Yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do at all if you're trying to get better. But I just really firmly believed that if God's going to heal me of my Mycobacterium, I can't have a plan B. I have to put it all on God. And that's what I started doing. And I prayed every single night. And I, thanked Jesus for my healing. And I thanked him for the breath in my lungs and for finding Dr. Wallace. But, I stopped doing my treatments the way I was supposed to be doing them, because that's just what I had been hearing. Andrew said, you can't have a plan B. So I don't really remember when in the year this was, but I also mentioned, aside from Andrew Womack, I mentioned Curry Blake. And my mom took me to see Curry Blake in Dallas so that he could actually pray over me, put his hands on me and pray. Because when you're new to healing prayer, like actually going to someone who's not new at it is a lot, it's a lot more comforting because you're like, they know what they're doing. Well, Curry wasn't actually there. It was one of his friends. I don't actually know the relation, but he was also a healing minister. And he was incredible. He was so good. Like, his sermon brought me to tears. And afterwards, we went up to pray. And he looked at me and he said, without knowing my name, without knowing what was wrong with me, he said, God has big plans for you. Like, he has something in store for you. He is going to use you and use that light in you. And I know what you're thinking, because it's exactly what I thought. He says that to everybody. But he didn't. He didn't say that to everybody. And that took a long time to get through my head too, because I was like, oh, he just being nice. But I don't think he would say that if he didn't mean it. And he prayed over me. And when I walked away, he said, you don't have Mycobacterium anymore. Which was hard to believe at the time. But I just kept believing it. I kept believing, God's got this. Jesus has got this. I prayed. And I'm not going to say it was easy. I'm not going to say that I didn't have nights where I coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed, because I did. I had nights where I got no sleep. I had nights where I would scream at God and be like, why are you doing this to me? I'm trusting you to take this mycobacterium away, and you're making me cough, and you're doing all this, and I just got angry. But you have to realize that sickness doesn't come from God. Sickness comes from the devil. If you're a Christian, you know the Lord's Prayer. There's a part in the prayer where it says, on earth as it is in heaven. And there is no sickness in heaven. And that's what God wants. But because humans have free will, and because there is a devil, and because there are all these earthly things, we do get sick. And we do have ailments, and we do make bad choices. So all of the bad, that's not coming from God, that's coming from the devil. So you have to look at all of the good and realize that's what's coming from God. And God is bigger than the devil. He's bigger than the sickness. He's bigger than the mountain you're trying to climb. And that's not an easy thing to get through your head. That's not an easy thing to accept. But it's true. And I remember there was one particular night I was on the bathroom floor. I had just showered in my towel, crying because I couldn't stop coughing. And I got angry. I got so angry at God. Because why was I still like this? Why was I still coughing? Eventually, when I would send in those sputum cultures, they would say, you have no Mycobacterium. It's not showing up in your cultures. And my doctors didn't believe this. They were like, no, that's not possible. Like, we're going to go in and we're going to, like, see what's wrong. So they did a bronchoscopy on me. And, even the bronch, when they went in and they got mucus from deep down in my lungs, there was no Mycobacterium at all. And that's when I told my mom that I had stopped doing the amikacin. She wasn't very happy with me, but I mean, I was cured of Mycobacterium, so. And I want to say, like, if you're watching this and you're like, wow, that's not what I was expecting to hear. I was expecting to hear this treatment plan. I do truly believe that amikacin would have helped if I kept doing it, because like I said, the first month my numbers went down. And the second month, my numbers were down. But I didn't do it for very long. But I think if I had kept doing it, I would have seen the same results. But I decided to go a different way. And I put my life in God's hands. And I didn't have a plan B. So that's how I did it. So like I said, if you were hoping to hear the treatment, I do believe the amikacin definitely helps a lot. And, today, if you read my last blog post, my lung function is not that great. However, since my Mycobacterium battle, my lung function, the highest it has been, is 95%, which is just impressive for someone with cystic fibrosis that's 18 years old. So it has gotten up to 95, and I believe that it has the capacity to be there again. So yeah, it's, if you're out there and you have it, or you know someone who does, I definitely recommend, if you are someone who is religious, watching Andrew Womack and Curry Blake and other healing ministers, and just really getting into that, because it is the most incredible thing. It is also one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's very incredible. But if you don't think you're ready for that, definitely see out the amikacin, because like I've said a million times, I do believe that helped, and I do believe it would have continued to help me. Thanks for listening to my Mycobacterium story. I might do more videos in the future. Who knows? But yeah, I give it to God. I really did. And I am so grateful that I did. And I hope that this helped someone. I hope that it was entertaining. And I really want to thank you guys for watching and subscribing and just being amazing. So thank you.